David Lewis, thank you very much for your time this afternoon. I think the first question that we have to get out of the way here is, how confident are you that these criminal proceedings will actually commence?
Well, I'm not overly confident that under the present leadership of the NPA that they will commence with the rapidity with which they should commence, or with the efficiency and competence with which they should commence. I mean, if you remember, at the end of last year, pursuant to an application by us, the High Court removed Advocate Sean Abrams from his office as National Director of Public Prosecutions and empowered the Deputy President, Cyril Ramaphosa, to make the appointment of his successor, given President Zuma's conflict of interest. And we think that that the Deputy President should move very quickly to appoint a new head of the NPA in order to give confidence that these investigations will be pursued.
And David, who do you think that should be?
I don't have a particular candidate in mind. There are several, including one or two former heads of the NPA, but we don't lack for lawyerly skills in this country. What we need to look for is for somebody who is prepared to act independently, even and particularly of the person who appointed him, which has not been the case for the last 7 years.
And David, I really worry about that candidate being able to act independently. I can't help but wonder if this is not a political ploy in light of the recent developments that we're seeing in terms of President Jacob Zuma, as well as in the ANC. What are your thoughts on this?
I'm not sure exactly what you mean by political ploy. I mean, if what you're suggesting is that there may be a large number of people now who see the future scenarios changing and who are scrambling to get on the right side of history, this may indeed play a role in some of the more sort of robust recent activities of the NPA. But there is absolutely no reason why somebody appointed to a job which formally and informally requires independence and integrity and the like should not behave with independence and integrity. That's a natural requirement of the job. It's only in corrupt states with corrupt presidents and general corrupt governance structures that this doesn't happen. But it's an absolute prerequisite for a society in which the rule of law predominates. And so I don't see any reason why we should not have a competent, independent person of integrity appointed to head the NPA.
I mean, David, when this news first broke, it broke on Monday. The headlines were that the NPA's unit would issue the preservation orders on McKinsey and Trillian on Tuesday. Now that goalpost has been shifted to Wednesday today, although we still haven't heard anything as to whether that preservation order has been issued. Are you concerned that something may actually not be done about this case?
Well, I think, so much has been made of it up to now. It would be very difficult not to issue that preservation order. I mean, not least of all is that it has been acknowledged that the court has approved the freezing of McKinsey and Trillian's assets. And so I think they would be very hard pressed not to serve those orders. They've taken a long time already. Already, I think it's about nearly 6 weeks have passed since the court made that order, and they should move expeditiously, but I think they would find it very difficult to completely not serve the order, to get out of it altogether. I mean, what is needed to be done is that this needs to be followed, as we discussed earlier, by criminal charges and criminal prosecution very quickly.
David, Corruption Watch has been very vocal in its cooperation with the U.S. Department of Justice. Are we going to see the same kind of cooperation with South African authorities along with Corruption Watch as this case continues to develop?
We're always happy to cooperate with the South African authorities. We went to the U.S. authorities because we believe that McKinsey has broken U.S. law, but also because we had no trust in the willingness of the NPA and the Hawks to pursue this. If they are willing to pursue it, we are more than willing to share and to assist their investigation, just as we have indicated and demonstrated that we are willing to assist any US investigation that may take place.
David, does the timing of all these events raise any eyebrows on your side? I mean, before the ANC conference, President Jacob Zuma announced a state of capture inquiry. After the ANC conference on the Monday, actually, we learned that the NPA is going in to seize the assets of Trillian and McKinsey. Today, in front of me, I'm reading the fact that the CIPC is also possibly pursuing criminal complaints against or against SAP, KPMG, and McKinsey. This is all happening in a backdrop where conversations are happening behind closed doors over President Jacob Zuma's future. Does the timing of these events cause any discomfort on your part as to why it's all happening right now?
No. I think the timing of the announcement of the Commission of Inquiry was an attempt by Zuma to sort of get ahead of the curve. But, I think the game is changing. I hope the game is changing, but I think all of this is an indication that there's a new sheriff in town, and agencies are not only freer to act then in the interests of maintaining and upholding the rule of law and the Constitution than they were, but that they might be judged well for doing so, whereas in the past, they might have been judged ill for doing so. So, I think, what's happening is a reflection of the change in the environment, and I just hope that those who have succeeded President Zuma in power in the governing party will recognize the very positive public response to what is happening. And that they will, act in the full knowledge that robust enforcement of the law will enjoy vast public support.
Robust enforcement of the law. I like that. David, I know you've got your hands full with this state of capture case involving a whole host of private sector companies, including government entities on that front. But any stance on Steinhoff? I mean, will Corruption Watch be pursuing anything on Steinhoff's regard to ensure that the law is upheld against the wrongdoers there?
We haven't to date, I think the Steinhoff situation is obviously a very serious situation on every front. I mean, not least of all for the reputation of South African business. I haven't heard that, Steinhoff is a case of state capture in the sense that in order to achieve its objectives, whatever they were, of Steinhoff, that the state has been complicit, that the state has been captured in order for this to happen. In the case of the Guptas, maybe in the case of MultiChoice, in the case of SAP, in this case of McKinsey, they effectively captured or alleged to have captured regulatory bodies, ministers, decision-making structures of the state, state-owned enterprises, in order to achieve their objectives. I haven't heard that said so far of Steinhoff. If it is true, if there is some regulator that is complicit, that has been complicit in allowing Steinhoff to do what they have alleged to have done, well, then it would start to interest us and those who are concerned with state capture very strongly. But although we may all be appalled by what is unfolding in Steinhoff, I don't think yet that it's a clear instance of state capture as many of the others are.
All right. So
which doesn't mean, of course,
it's just state capture. So, you're right. Steinhoff's case hasn't emerged as being state capture. It's purely on the private sector corruption front. So you're saying because it's the private sector and doesn't involve regulators and ministers so far, it's not something that you'll take up until such a point is made?
We don't usually take up pure private sector issues. But, the fact is that, when a big public company, a big listed company, goes down in the way that Steinhoff has been going down and may go down forever. The interests of the public are very directly involved. So we are not far away from the Steinhoff issue, but we have got our hands full with a lot of other things involving both the public sector, the private sector, the political leadership, law enforcement. So, we keep a sort of beady eye on Steinhoff, and, we certainly believe that a criminal investigation is very strongly indicated in the Steinhoff case. There's little doubt about that. And I hope that the South African authorities pursue them with the same vigor as, let's say, the German authorities seem to be doing. But it's not sort of yet within our sphere of activity.